Alright, so let's come over here to Hideout, and let's take a look at Hideout. We generate the map. Okay, many of you are already familiar with Hideout. We've got player town centers, right? There's a big forest in the middle. You start with basic resources. You start with palisade walls. So let's go through the ages here, and let's take a look at this. So in the Dark Age, actually, let's move and copy this sheet, and we're going to keep it in this document, and we're going to move to the end position, and we're going to name this worksheet sample hideout evaluation, and we're going to do February of 2024, and this is going to be reference only. These are just, again, these just reflect my opinions, but I think most people's opinions will be similar. I'm hoping so. But all right, so we got sample hideout. We got all this other stuff here. We don't need this. So villager. Can I use villagers in the Dark Age to screw over my opponent? I'm going to say that it would be implausible. I'm going to say that because, you know, we could try. Could go over to the opponent's walls and beat on it with villagers and try to get in. But if my opponent is like not in a coma, they're going to notice and they're going to just wall with houses behind. So, but maybe there would be that situation where there's a hole in the wall and they missed it. I could come in here with villagers and I could try some things, right? It is theoretically possible for me to send villagers over here to mess with my opponent early on, walling crap in, shanking at things, but it's going to put me behind. I can't see a situation where you get ahead. So for that reason, I have selected implausible. Now, galleys, fire ships, demolition ships, all this stuff is impossible, right? Because there's no water on Hideout. Nobody could build a dock. Let's take a look at the barracks here. Swordsman line. Okay, could I drush? That is the question here. You can't make spearmen and you can't make eagles, so these are both impossible in the Dark Age. Could I drush on Hideout? Yes, I could. Would it do damage? No, not really. I'm going to say it's not impossible. I'm going to say it's implausible. I'm going to say, you know what? We could drush on Hideout, but again, it's like with the villagers. They're just going to wall it out. It's not as bad. Actually, no, I'm going to say impractical, because maybe the drush could like distract some archers, or it could keep him forward, and you could do like a drush fast castle. But I'm going to say most of the time, less than 15% of the time, a drush is a waste of your time on this map. All right, so spearmen, impossible. Eagle warriors, impossible. Archers, not possible in the Dark Age. None of this stuff is possible. Stable, not possible. None of this is possible. All right, so I think this is basically good. The last thing that could potentially be possible is, can I douche in the Dark Age on Hideout? No, not really. Not again. We're gonna have implausible here. Okay, and then everything else we don't have the permission to build yet. So that was easy, right? That's Dark Age. So now we're going to look at it from a Feudal Age perspective. Could I come in with villagers during the Feudal Age? Again, implausible. It's not worth even thinking about. And actually, I'm going to select that for the rest of the ages here, just because at that point you're going to have your opponent's probably going to have units out, or they're going to have buildings everywhere, and villagers rushing in trying to kill things is just not a good idea. Okay. All this remains impossible. Could I man-at-arms push? I think I could. I think man-at-arms could be quite commonly powerful on this map. We see man-at-arms on Hideout a lot of the time. Somebody will come up here and they'll maybe get some man-at-arms going, and they'll maybe have archers behind it, or they'll have towers behind it. But I would say we see man-at-arms quite a bit, because man-at-arms tear through palisade walls. They're very effective against them. And then maybe they could get in here and deny some resources. I mean, we should, in our diligence, do a few generations to see what the different possibilities are for this map. But I've played this map a lot, so I know. In this case, the gold is forward even, so man-at-arms could like get here and they could tear down this palisade. There's no reason this gold couldn't be up here instead. and then it's actually closer to blue, and he could tear it down. He could come in here and he could do a lot of damage, potentially even kill villagers. So for that reason, we've selected common here for the swordsman line. So spearman, probably implausible, I think. You could maybe do a trash rush, right, with spearmen and skirmishers, but I think it would be counterproductive because your opponent starts out walled, and that would be a really big investment, and it could be really hard to deny stuff. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go impractical here. I think I don't think it'd be counterproductive, but I think it is unlikely to result in a victory. Same thing with the eagles, okay? You can make them, but they're less effective against buildings than the man-at-arms are, so they're less likely to get in and be able to kill somebody, and you do kind of start with the walls, so you can probably go fast castle to be able to withstand these strategies. All right, archers. I'm going to say common. Skirmishers, going to say impractical. Again, that's the same thing with the spearmen, perhaps. Cavalry archers are physically impossible to build in Feudal Age, so we will say nothing here, as are hand cannons. Now let's go take a look at the stable. I'm going to make a controversial choice here. I'm going to say uncommon. I've seen people go scouts. I don't think it's very effective here. They're less effective per resources spent than man-at-arms against palisade walls. Although maybe scouts could go out and about and deny things out here, and scouts eco is still pretty good. So, you know, you could probably force your opponent to react a bit, but I think it'll be less effective than man-at-arms in most cases. But maybe you go scouts because you want to go into something later. So that's why something that could be effective later. So that's why I selected that. I've seen scouts on this, but man-at-arms happen more often. All right, knights are not possible. Camels are not possible. Battle elephants are not possible. Steppe lancers, not possible. Monk, warrior, priest, not possible. All right, siege workshop, battering ram, siege elephant. It is mostly not possible unless you are the Cumans, but I'm going to say it's impractical, just because there could be that one Cuman player that does this sort of thing, right? Doesn't add a lot, but it adds a little bit, I guess. Otherwise, the rest of this is not really happening. Unique units cannot be built at this point. Non-castle unique units, no. Trebuchets, no. What about town centers? Again, implausible. I'm going to say this is implausible for the rest of the ages here. Tower. I think towers would be quite common, actually. Castles you can't build, and fortified churches you can't build. Okay, so there's Feudal Age for us. And now we're on to Castle Age. Again, no ships. Ships are not a thing. Swordsmen. I'm going to say uncommon swordsmen in the Castle Age. I feel like people are going to have defensive options for swordsmen at that point. They're going to have multiple town centers, or they could have castles of their own, or they could have siege weapons like scorpions. So they're going to have heavier counters to swordsmen. So I'm going to put them as uncommon for now. Maybe you disagree, and that's fine. We can actually go back and change it around and see how it affects the score at the end. Spearmen. Again, I'm going to say impractical. I don't think many people are going to go in with spearmen and mess up their opponents in the Castle Age. Eagle Warrior, again, impractical. Can you specifically go eagles? I guess maybe you could secretly go eagles and then attack and then rush in and attack the gate and destroy it and get into the woodline and everything and raid things. So it's possible, but I don't think it's very common. Let's think about archers. I think archers would be very common here. What about skirmishers? Yeah, probably, right? I think they'd be uncommon at that point. You might want to resist the attack of archers, and maybe you could go and raid your opponent. We're actually going to say impractical here, though, because nobody looks at Hideout and is like, yes, skirmishers in Castle Age. This is what I need to do. What about cavalry archers? I'm going to say that cavalry archers are uncommon. I think for the purposes, cavalry archers are all about mobility, but it's easy to like wall this off, and it's easy to prevent mobility from being a big factor. And I think you get better value out of foot archers on this map than cavalry archers. So for that reason, I've put them as uncommon here. Hand cannons, still not possible. All right, scouts. I think scouts are going to be uncommon in the Castle Age, but I think knights are going to be quite common. Knights are not going to care about these palisades. They can tear them down quite easily. Camels, I think camels are going to be similar to knights. Maybe not quite as common. So I'll say that the camels are uncommon. Battle elephants, not going to see them very often. Not as many civilizations. I'm going to say that they are uncommon. Same thing with steppe lancers. So stable units in general are going to be popular because of their ability to break down relatively everything but stone walls, basically. They can break down, and they can still get around here. I think most of them are uncommon, except for knights, which we see all the time. Monk, warrior, priest. I'm going to say monks are uncommon here. I like monks, but I don't think that they would work 50% of the time. I think they would work 25 to 45% of the time, which is where uncommon is, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 15 to 35% of the time. I think that's about right for monks. Maybe you can make them work more effectively. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, actually. Maybe I should just say the monks are common. Because I do go monks quite often. I'm going to leave them at uncommon for now, just to be conservative. All right, battering ram, siege elephant. I'm going to say that these are uncommon. Again, you could do some kind of man-at-arms push with rams and such. Mangonels, I think, are going to be quite common. You could actually let's say uncommon because there could be castles in the way or guard tower defense. Scorpion, again, uncommon. Bombard cannon, not possible. Siege tower. So is this the kind of map where somebody could like siege tower in and cause a lot of damage? I don't think so, because there's not a lot of space back here to boom. People are building, they're building their stuff along the wall here, so it's you can't even really hop over, and it's easier just to break it down. So this is an arena. On arena, siege towers are much more common. So I'm going to say that siege towers would be probably counterproductive here. So we're going to say that this is implausible. I've never seen a siege tower on Hideout before, all the games that I've played. Castle unit, unique unit. I'm going to say common. Happens quite a bit. Non-castle unique unit, I'm going to say impractical. Don't see many of those. What, you see Genitours or something. Trebuchets are not buildable at this point. Town center. Again, you could tower rush potentially, but it's going to be less effective here because people can build siege weapons in castles. So I'm going to say impractical. You could do like a guard tower push something, but castle, yeah. Castle drop would probably be quite common, right? I don't want to say that it's prevalent. I haven't really put anything prevalent, really. I don't think that there's any one strategy that's like, oh no, God, that's so OP. It's not like Nomad where it's conks every time, right? And that's the other thing too, is you should go in and you should assume that people are going to pick the worst possible unique units that you're going to have to fight, and they're going to pick their civilizations to maximize the support of whatever strategy they want to do. Fortified church push. I've never even heard of this. I'm going to say it's impractical. But then again, I haven't watched many Georgians and Armenians. All right, and then the final age is Imperial Age here. So again, ship's not possible. Swordsman, I'm going to bump that back up to common again. I think at this point, people are boomed enough. They've got enough on food and such that the power spike of knights and crossbows becomes less relevant, and swordsmen again become much more relevant. Let's go to spearmen. I think spearmen are going to be quite common in ending games here, especially if you run out of gold, which can happen on Hideout. Eagle warriors, I'm going to say that those are uncommon now. There could be like an Incas player or something like that they mass up a bunch of eagles behind the stone walls, and again, nobody sees them, and then they break in with eagles and rams and do a ton of damage. I don't think it happens very often, but it could happen. Archers, again, archers are going to be common. Skirmishers, we're not going to see them very often. Winning games, but I'm going to put them down as uncommon here. Just because if you do run out of gold, it's a good ranged unit to counter pikemen with. Cavalry and elephant, I'm going to say, again, uncommon here. Hand cannons. How many times has somebody ever gone hand cannons on Hideout and killed you with them. That's another way of looking at it. I'm going to say it's impractical. I don't think hand cannons are really... You could try to do like a fast imp like on Arena on Hideout, and hand cannons would be an important part of that army, but that doesn't really happen on Hideout, fast imp. It's just, you don't have the stone walls. It's too dangerous. I'm going to say that scouts become a lot more common here. If somebody can somehow manage to keep you open and constantly raid you, that would be a huge pain in the rear. I don't want to say that it's prevalent. Maybe you could make an argument that it is, but I think it's reasonably possible to keep scouts away from you. Actually, you know, looking back on my Hideout games, I am going to say prevalent here. This unit is so annoying to deal with. Knights. Common. You know, I mean, how often does somebody go like Paladin or Cavalier and win? I'm going to say uncommon here. Camels. Again, I'm going to say maybe to counter the Hussar that are streaming across the back of the base. I'm going to say that camels are uncommon as well. I don't think you're going to see them very often. Battle elephants, uncommon. Steppe lancers, uncommon. Monastery. Monks are probably going to be impractical to win the game in Imperial Age at this point. Siege Workshop. Rams. Big deal, right? So I'm going to say between uncommon and common for Rams, I'm still going to say uncommon just because there's other competing siege options. Mangonels, I'm going to say uncommon. Scorpions, not common. Bombard cannons, uncommon, but they are at least possible now. Just because it's a variety of siege weapons here. Siege Tower, implausible. So the unique unit for the castle, quite common. Non-castle unique unit, maybe uncommon at this point. Maybe somebody's got condotieros or something. I'm going to say impractical, actually. Trebuchets, I'm going to say uncommon. I mean, because who plays Hideout to go fast imp into trebuchets and mess with your opponent? Guard towers, I'm going to say impractical. Or, sorry, keeps, impractical. Castle drops, impractical. I'm actually, yeah, I'm going to say impractical. I guess maybe you could sneak up a castle, maybe on that area in the middle, because the players are going to try to chop through. But in general, players are going to have access to a powerful enough siege at that point that it's not going to be very damaging. And I'm again going to say implausible here, just because siege is getting so good. And then the final thing that we have to do is, now that we've gone through all of these things and we've sort of said, you know, these are the good strategies, these are the strategies that are going to work, we got to put in how many games do we got to put in the relative odds here. How many times do we think the game is going to end in Dark Age? I'm going to say 2% of the time it ends in Dark Age. All right. So we got 90% here, or 98% to make up. And then maybe we go like 18% in Feudal Age, so we're at 20 total. And then we have 60 to make up, so I'm going to put 30 here and 30 here. And so we should add up all these. They should add up to 100. Oh, no, whoops, they only add up to 80. So we will maybe bump this one up by 5. 23. Actually, we'll bump each of these up as well. So this should all add up to 85. I'm going to add maybe 10 to this and 15 to the other one. It will autocorrect. Yeah, I'm going to add 5 to here. Actually, we'll make this 40 and this other one 35, just because I think more stuff gets to imp. We don't have to make these add up to 100 because it will auto-correct it, but I like to do it because it allows me to sort of visualize. So it's basically between Dark and Feudal Age, a quarter of your Hideout games. What I'm saying, a quarter of your Hideout games are ending. Is that accurate, or is it slightly less? I actually think it's probably slightly less. So I'm going to peel this back maybe to 20 and increase this by 1 and this by 2 till I think it feels right here. Yeah, the sum is 100. So the final score here is calculated as 149. It's basically adding up all of these different numbers here, and then it puts it into a calculation of how much time you're spending, how many options you have in feudal age relative to how much time you're spending there. Because if you're spending a lot of time in an age but you have no options in it, then it penalizes your competitivity score. So I got 149.21 here. Let's take a look at Arabia and see how that compares. 143.85. Let's take a look at Arena. 128.94. So we're pretty much in the ballpark. 112.58. I mean, there might have been some. There were a few more things added, like the Arabia doesn't have monk or doesn't have monk/warrior priest, and it doesn't have fortified church. And these are both adding free points to this. But in general, this is about right. You might be able to bump some of these rankings up and some of them down. But the idea is to have an objective way of scoring the maps so that we are, I mean, as objective as possible. A lot of this depends on my feelings, right? But if we can at least break this down and tell the map makers these are the various things that we're going to look for, then I think that's fair. So the video ended up being a lot longer than I was planning for. So if you stuck around to the end, thank you very much. Hopefully it's informative, and hopefully it gives you an idea of where we're coming from, why we want to maximize unpredictability through the spreadsheet. I wish I could explain it better through the video, but that's not really my way. It's written down pretty well, and I can go through and I can show a sample evaluation of how it would be done. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the Discord, and we'll talk about it. But this is how we're going to evaluate the custom maps for Alchemy Leagues. And if you have any suggestions for how to improve this, I would absolutely love to hear them. Can't implement them now, but I'm sure that there are ways to improve this. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hopefully we're able to evaluate the Alchemy League's maps consistently, and it will continue to have a great tournament going forward. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys later.